Assalamualaikum dear students, hope you are fine by the grace of Almighty Allah. Welcome to NAEVS Home School. I am Sabreena Haque, assistant teacher of science, National Adult English Version School, Day Shift. Dear students, today I am going to take a chemistry class for class 10 student based on chapter 9. The name of the chapter is acid base balance. We already learned about acid and base from our previous class, and now we will learn about acid and base balance in chemical reaction. So let us move forward to today's topic. The name of the chapter, again I am saying, acid and base balance. Look, here is different types of fruits that that fruits contains organic acid because they are taste sour, and that means all the fruits which taste sour have some acid, and we use various kinds of compound in chemical laboratory. Acid, base and salt are most frequently used of them. As chemistry learner, you also need to learn about acid, base and salt. In laboratory, we mostly use dilute acid and base instead of concentrated acid or base in our laboratory. Dilute means which solution has less acid or base and more amount of water in it. That's why they are saying dilute. We take in acid, base and salt with our food, which is important for our body. Salt is formed by neutralizing acid and base or vice versa. That means when we go through a chemical reaction of acid and base, they produce water and salt, and water and salt are neutral product. That's why it is known as neutralizing reaction, and we can determine the acidity and from various experiment in the laboratory. Litmus test, pH value test are the most commonly used. That litmus test and pH value test is used to find out the acid and base. The necessary acid, base and salt are also harmful in some extent to our environment, and we will discuss about all this in this chapter. Now come to acid. Then acid is highly important among chemicals, and that is the definition of acid. That is, acid is a kind of chemical which when dissolved in water decomposed into hydrogen ion or proton, and that is the only one characteristics of acid. That means when acid dissolved in water, that time it will produce the proton. Look, this is the aqueous solution of hydrochloric acid. That means it is dissolved in water and it decomposed in hydrogen ion or proton and the chlorine ion. That means when the substances after dissolving in water produce the hydrogen ion or proton, that product we can say acid. Again, carbolic acid, acetic acid, etc. are dilute acid. Here dilute means weak acids because they are organic acid. Already we have learned in our previous class books, that is, there are two types of acid, organic acid and inorganic acid. We get which acid from the organic compound like fruits and various parts of the plants, which acid we get, that acid are organic acid. But which acid we don't get from the organic option, that means from plants parts, that is the inorganic acid, and most all organic acid are weak acid. That's why they are saying here about them dilute acid. They decomposed in aqueous solution in the following manners. Then means when we use the hydrochloric acid aqueous solution, carbolic acid as aqueous solution, that we get 2 proton and 1 carbonate ions. Then it is acetic acid. When we dissolve in water, that we will get 1 proton and 1 acetate ions. Now come In this case, hydrochloric and sulphuric decomposition are shown monophased arrow mark. Look, this one is one-way arrow mark, that is moon-faced arrow mark. That means this acid decomposed 100% in the water solution. But here, if you observe, that is dual phased arrow mark. One is showing this way, another is showing this way. That is then it is a weak acid. This is the sign of a weak acid, because they partially decomposed in water, and because they are, that's why they are called weak acid. And because the hydrochloric and sulphuric acid decomposed 100% in the water solution, that's why they are called strong acid. But here about the weak acid, they are used the word diluted. You will not confuse, because that dilute means weak, not the dilute solution. It is means weak. Now for instance, at 25-degree temperature, out of 1000 acetic acid molecules, only 4 will be decomposed, and rest 996 molecules remain intact. When the amount of acid in the solution of acid water and is higher than water, that is solution is called concentrated acid. That means where in the acid and water solution, acid molecule is more than water molecule, that solution is known as concentrated acid. And when the amount of water in such solution is higher, that is known as dilute acid. Dear students, here this dilute acid is weak acid. This is not that dilute acid. That means in this dilute acid, the portion of water is more than acid. That means water molecule is more than acid molecule in that solution. But when we are thinking about the organic acid, they are weak acids. So remember this acid's name as weak acids, because the dilute word will be make confused to you. Now acid tastes sour. It is a common characteristics and the basic characteristics. Which thing is sour? That contains acid. And you have certainly tasted tamarind, which is too sour. Tamarind contains tartaric acid. And the blue litmus turns red when it put in a acid solution, and it is also a characteristic of acid. Acid undergo the reaction with metallic oxide and produce salt and water. That means when acid react with metallic oxide, that time it will produce salt and water. Look, this is the calcium oxide, and this is the hydrochloric acid, produce calcium chloride and water. Now come to next page, that acid undergoes reaction, more reactive metal produce salt and hydrogen gas. This is another important reaction. That means when acid react with a metal, that time it produce hydrogen gas. Why I give arrow here? That means it is a gas. The hydrogen gas is produced in the reaction of metal and hydrochloric acid, or metal or any acid. Now food item that we take every day contains various acid. Example, milk contain lactic acid, soft drinks contain carbonic acid, lemon or orange has the citric acid, tamarind has the tartaric acid, vinegar has the ethanoic acid, tea has the tannic acid. And when we eat or take this food, the acid goes inside our body. They help digesting our food and prevent diseases. Besides, there are pickles containing different acids and act as appetizer. And since these acids are weak, they cannot harm our health. Inside the body, the stomach wall generated hydrochloric acid, which is very strong, and it is used for decomposing food inside. And however, sometimes excess secretion of hydrochloric acid from the stomach stirs to decompose the cell of stomach wall. That means if we remain hungry or keep our stomach empty for a long time, the hydrochloric acid which is produced from our digestive system, that decomposed the cell of stomach, and corrosion is created there, and which we feel pain in the stomach, and this situation is known as peptic ulcer, and we are used to say this is gastric. It is used to say peptic ulcer because we are feeling burning and pain inside our stomach, and that is known as peptic ulcer. And therefore, we need to avoid food that inspire excess secretion of acids, that means oily food, junk food that inspire excess of secretion of acid. To stay without food for a long time, we have to avoid these things also, and come to properties of dilute acid, and they are proved through experiment. First one is taste. All acid tastes sour. It is known to us, and it is the basic characteristics of the acid. Now come to corrosive. Acid are corrosive. Just now we have discussed if there is more secretion of hydrochloric acid in empty stomach, that will be make corrosion in our stomach. It will be decomposed our cells of stomach. That's why it is corrosive. It is acid called corrosive, and if we put a metal in acid, outer edge the metal will corrode. And come to litmus test. This litmus test is used both for acid and base. Then acid turns the blue litmus red. It is a special kind of paper which is indicate the acid and base. Now come to next one. Reaction with reactive metals. Acid undergoes reaction with reactive metals, and this is potassium, sodium, magnesium, etc. are produced salt and metal of hydrogen as well. That means when acid react with metal, it produces hydrogen gas. You have to remember that, and after the hydrogen you have to write G in bracket, otherwise you have to give a arrow. This is a proof. This is a hydrogen gas. This is a gas. That's why you have to give a arrow here. Now come to reaction between dilute acid and metallic carbonate. And dilute acid undergo react with metallic carbonate and to produce water and carbon dioxide. And look, there's calcium carbonate react with hydrochloric acid, produce salt, water and carbon dioxide. This also a gas. This also a gas. Now come to next one. Channel this produced carbon dioxide in lime water. This lime water will turn turbid, and this reaction is calcium hydroxide react with carbon dioxide, produce calcium carbonate and water, and that prove that this gas is carbon dioxide. Now come for the next characteristics of dilute acid, that is metallic hydrogen carbonate or metallic bicarbonate also undergo reaction with dilute acid and produce salt, water and carbon dioxide. That means metallic bicarbonate when react with any acid, that will produce carbon dioxide, water and salt of that metal. This carbon dioxide also gas, so we have to give arrow mark after carbon dioxide like this way, or we have to write G in bracket. Now come for the next characteristics. Reaction between dilute acid and metals hydroxide, that is alkali. Dilute acid undergo reaction with metals hydroxide and produce salt and water, that we already learned. That means metals hydroxide or oxide is alkali and is known as base, and that's why when the acid react with base or metallic hydroxide, that means alkali, that produce salt and water. Now come to last characteristics, that reaction between dilute acid and metal oxide. Acids undergo reaction with metal oxide and produce salt and water. I have told the so metallic oxide also in alkaline nature, and metallic hydroxide also called alkali. That is why when the acid react with metallic oxide and hydroxide, it will produce salt and water. Now come to role of water in chemical. Okay, sorry, come to identification of acid. By applying these characteristics, we have to identify, we have to practice the identification of any acid. Come to nitric acid. Now, in nitric acid aqueous solution, it gives proton, it makes proton and nitrate ion. Now come to nitric acid, make the blue litmus into red litmus. Nitric acid when react with magnesium, that means metal, it produce salt and hydrogen gas, magnesium nitrate and hydrogen gas. Now come to when nitric acid react with alkali or metals hydroxide, that means calcium, when nitric acid react with calcium hydroxide, it produce salt and water, that means calcium nitrate and water. And last one, the nitric acid when react with any metals carbonate, that time it produce carbon dioxide gas, the salt of that metal and also water. That all prove that nitric acid is a acid. Like this way you have to practice to prove any, like sulphuric acid and hydrochloric acid. For this acid you have to identify this acid according to their characteristics which is given in your book. And come for the role of water in chemical properties of acid. In all discussion above, we have used the phase dilute acid. Dilute acid solution means acid has been added to water to make an acidic solution. The question whether acid is maintain its properties when added with water or they undergo changes. Suppose you have taken some oxalic acid lattice, put a dry blue litmus paper on them, that time we will observe there is no change of color because we use dry litmus paper and also oxalic acid lattice. That means it is dry oxalic acid, and dehydrated oxalic acid lattice do not contain any hydrogen ion, because when we say the acid's definition, we have said when it dissolve in water it produce hydrogen ion, and when you dissolve the dehydrated oxalic acid in water, it will decompose and donate hydrogen ion, which will turn the blue litmus into red. That means hydrogen ion present in an aqueous solution show acidic property. Then partial decomposition means instead of all molecules added in the solution, some of them decomposed and rest remain intact. Just we have discussed in our previous lesson. That means when we use acetic acid or tartaric acid or any other organic acid, that will decompose a little bit. Then here they give some example: citric acid lattice and water citric acid aqueous solution. And here citric acid produce hydrogen proton and make a proton and citric ion, and hydrogen chloride is completely ionized in aqueous solution and produce hydrogen ion. That means hydrogen chloride plus water, that means in aqueous hydrochloric acid, total hydrochloric acid, 100% of hydrochloric acid will decompose, but the organic acid, that means citric acid, will decompose partially. The pure sulphuric acid and nitric acid are colorless liquid. Both the compound remain in molecular state since they are not ionized or hydrogen ion is not present in them. Pure sulphuric acid and pure nitric acid neither show acidic property nor do they conduct electric electricity. They produce hydrogen ion when they are dissolved in water, showing acidic property and conducting electricity. And this portion you have to remember, this is very much important. That means pure acid without any water, it is non-conductor of electricity and it is not showing the acidic property. And the pure sulfuric acid and nitric acid is colorless. That property you have to remember. And when we dissolve water in it, when we dissolve the acid in water, that time it will show all the acidic property. Then the acids that partially ionized in aqueous solution are weak acids. That also I have told you have to remember all organic acids name as weak acids and all inorganic acids name as strong acid. Strong acid ionized completely in aqueous solution, and they shows the weak that shows the weak acids have lesser amount of hydrogen ion, and strong acid have comparatively greater number of hydrogen ion because they decomposed in the water solution 100%. That's why they have the more hydrogen ion than that of the weak acid, because in the page number 208 we already discussed that out in the 25-degree temperature, out of 1000 acetic acid molecules, only 4 molecules decompose on. That means it makes only 4 proton of hydrogen, and whereas we will get 100% decomposition of hydrochloric acid in aqueous solution. That's why the hydrochloric or inorganic all acids are known as strong acids, and organic most acids are known as weak acids. Now come to concentrated solution. Then acids that contains comparatively lesser amount of water is concentrated acid. Different concentrated acid like concentrated hydrochloric acid, concentrated sulphuric acid, concentrated nitric acid, etc. are used in laboratory at different time. If these acids come in contact with our body parts, they create injury on that spot, and this is why when using these acids we need to put on gloves, goggles, mask, apron, etc. for caution. Now concentrated hydrochloric acid, and this is the properties of concentrated hydrochloric acid. The solution that is produced when hydrogen chloride gas is dissolved in water is called hydrochloric acid, and in the solution amount of water is comparatively lesser than the amount of hydrogen chloride gas, and the moment the cork of the container bottle of concentrated hydrochloric acid is opened, there is a fog created and a highly pungent smell spread all over, and that's why before opening the bottle of concentrated hydrochloric acid, nose and the mouth should covered in mask, and eyes should be protected with goggles. Now this hydrochloric acid and water, hydrogen chloride gas and water make the hydrochloric concentrated acid, where the water molecules is lesser than the hydrogen chloride gas molecule. Now come to concentrated nitric acid. This solution is produced when nitrogen dioxide or nitrogen trioxide gas dissolved in nitrogen dioxide gas dissolved in water is called nitric acid. Comparatively higher amount of nitrogen dioxide gas dissolved in a small amount of water, and to prepare the concentrated nitric acid, and here they give the reaction to 3 molecules of nitrogen dioxide which is dissolved in 1 molecule of water and makes 2 molecule of nitric acid on nitrous oxide. Now same as the hydrochloric acid, when we open the cork of the bottle of the nitric acid, a fog is created with a highly pungent smell all over. That's the color of the container of the bottle of nitric acid is brown, and for preventing light from light enters the bottle, then nitric acid will be decomposed. That's why we have to use the deep dark color bottle, then light cannot enter in it. The brown color of the bottle prevent the light to enter the bottle. Now come to concentrated sulfuric acid, the solution that produced when sulfur trioxide, dear student, that will be trioxide. Sulfur trioxide gas is dissolved in water is called sulfuric acid. Comparatively, higher amount of sulfur trioxide gas is dissolved in a small amount of water to prepare sulfuric acid. Look there, once sulfur trioxide molecule react with one water molecule, produce one molecule of sulfuric acid. Dear students, this is your homework number 6. You have to write the properties of acid as your homework number 6. Dear students, I have finished my today's topic. This is very much important for you. You already learned all the properties in your previous class. Again, you have to learn these topics and properties, and you have to identify, you have to practice the identification of various acids. So, do the SW and submit it. Thank you.